She had buried a husband, raised a son alone, and rebuilt her life from nothing. She was strong. She was careful. She was the last person anyone would expect to steal. But on a bathroom floor at 2 a.m, with a C-section scar still healing, 3 children asleep in the next room, and a man in the house who counted his tiles like they were sacred, she opened a work laptop and changed a number. Just 20,000 naira. Just this once. Just until things got better. They didn't get better. This is the story of Adaeze, widow, mother, orphan, and the slow, quiet way a good woman can be pushed to the edge of herself by someone who was supposed to love her. Stay with me, because the ending will surprise you. This is African Folktales by Mazikai. Here, every story has a lesson. Kindly like and subscribe if you want similar stories like this one. Adaeze had learned to sleep lightly. It was something widowhood taught you, that stillness could shatter without warning, that the world could rearrange itself in a single phone call. When Kelechi died in that road accident 5 years ago, she had been 7 months pregnant, standing in her kitchen making a goosey soup, humming to herself. By morning she was a widow. By the time her son Emre arrived in the world 8 weeks later, she had already taught herself the brutal mathematics of survival. Count what you have, not what you've lost. She counted. A modest apartment in Lekki, a solid job as a finance officer at Meridian Logistics, a healthy boy with his father's nose and her stubbornness. She counted these things every morning like a prayer, and she moved forward. She was not looking for love when she found Tundai. He found her at a mutual friend's birthday dinner, charming, broad-shouldered, with the kind of laugh that filled a room and made you feel like the evening had been waiting for him. He was recently divorced, he told her. 2 years out of a marriage that had simply run its course. He said it casually, the way people do when they've rehearsed the lines so many times the pain no longer shows on their face. She liked that he seemed settled, unhurried. She told him about Kelechi on their 3rd date. Laid it out plainly, the way she did everything. Her husband, the accident, Emre, the years she'd spent building something from rubble. She watched his face carefully as she spoke, searching for the flicker of retreat that men sometimes couldn't hide. Tundai reached across the table and covered her hand with his. "You are remarkable," he said, "and your son is lucky to have you." She told herself that was enough. They dated for a year. It was a good year. Sunday rice and stew, evening walks along the estate road, little Emre slowly warming to the tall man who brought him a chin-chin and kicked a football with him in the compound. When the pregnancy test came back positive and the scan revealed 2 heartbeats, Adaeze sat in the hospital car park for a long time, her hands over her mouth, laughing and crying at once. Twins, a boy and a girl, 2 lives, a beginning. Tundai said she should move in immediately. "My house is big enough," he said. "You shouldn't be going through this alone." She said yes. The first sign was small enough to dismiss. She paid for groceries the first week because he had forgotten his wallet. The second week, the same. By the second month, she was carrying everything. The antenatal appointments, the iron supplements, the maternity dresses, the food that filled his refrigerator and his kitchen and his house. She told herself he was between contracts, that good men sometimes stumbled, that it meant nothing about his character. Then she heard him speaking to Emre in the corridor. Her son had knocked over a ceramic vase. The clumsy, joyful accident of a 4-year-old navigating a space that didn't yet feel like home. Tundai's voice came through the wall, low, deliberate. "I built this house with my own money. I didn't know you or your mother when I was suffering to build it. Don't come here and destroy what belongs to me." Adaeze stood in the kitchen doorway and watched her son's face do something no 4-year-old's face should ever do. Emre didn't cry. He simply went quiet, a careful, cautious quietness, the kind children learn when they understand without being told that they are not truly welcome somewhere, that they are guests in a place that was never meant for them. She put Emre to bed that night and lay beside him until he fell asleep, her hand on his small chest, feeling his heartbeat, thinking of Kelechi, thinking of what she had walked them both into. The twins arrived at 38 weeks, furious and perfect, announcing themselves to the world with no apology. The caesarean was necessary and expensive. The kind of bill that arrived in a neat printed envelope and sat on a table like a quiet accusation. She slid it across to Tundai on a Tuesday evening. He glanced at it, pushed it back. "I don't have money right now, Ada." "Tundai, I said I don't have it." He picked up his phone. The conversation, as far as he was concerned, was over. She was 6 days post-surgery. The incision pulled every time she reached for the babies. She was breastfeeding 2 infants in shifts through the night, waking to find Emre sometimes standing silently in the doorway at 3 a.m, watching her, too old for his 4 years, too still, too careful. She had no mother to call, no aunt, no older sister who would show up with hot food and sharp words and love. Her parents had died before Emre was born, and she had long since made peace with that particular loneliness, the kind that has no name because there is no one left to name it with. She paid the hospital bill herself. She sold the small investment she had been quietly building since Kelechi died. The one she had promised herself was untouchable, reserved for Emre's school fees. She bought 2 cots, 2 car seats, nappies in bulk, formula for the nights her body couldn't keep pace. She bought everything, in silence, alone, because she still believed, somewhere deep in the stubborn marrow of her, that things would eventually shift. They did not shift. It started with 20,000 naira. She told herself it was temporary, a bridge loan to herself. She knew these systems. She had helped build them. One small adjustment in the disbursement ledger, nothing that would show before she replaced it. She replaced it, then she borrowed again, then again. The babies needed vaccines. Tundai's landlord, because she never forgot it was Tundai's house, Tundai's landlord, Tundai's name on every document, raised the service charge. Emre needed new school shoes because he had grown 2 sizes and was too proud, too quietly dignified to mention that his feet hurt, until she noticed him limping one afternoon and felt something in her chest crack clean open. She sat on the bathroom floor that night and counted the figure she owed herself. The number had a shape that frightened her. She got up. She went back to work. She adjusted another figure. This is what they don't tell you about desperation. It doesn't arrive with noise. It comes quietly, wearing the face of practicality, whispering just this once, just until things stabilize. Until you look up one day and you are someone you would not have recognized. Someone you would have pitied. Someone doing something that cannot be undone. The auditors came on a Wednesday in March. Polite, almost apologetic, the way people are when they already know the answer and are simply performing the necessary ceremony of questions. She sat across from her manager, a woman who had once called her the most dependable person on this team, and watched that description dissolve in real time. She was dismissed before noon. She drove home in silence, parked in front of Tundai's house, and sat there, engine off, hands in her lap, until the twins' feeding alarm went off on her phone. Then she went inside and fed her children. 3 weeks later, an envelope arrived. It came from a law firm she didn't recognise, addressed to her full name, Adaeze Ngozi Okafor, and for a moment her heart seized because she was certain it was a civil suit. Another consequence. Another thing she had earned. Her hands trembled as she opened it. It was not about the embezzlement. It was about Kelechi. Specifically, it was about a life insurance policy his company had taken out on all senior employees. A policy that had fallen into bureaucratic silence during the months she was too shattered by grief to chase paperwork. A policy that his former colleague Amaka, quiet, steady Amaka, who had known Kelechi since their university days in Nsukka, had spent nearly 3 years navigating, appealing, and refusing to abandon on Adaeze's behalf, without ever telling her. Because Amaka had felt responsible. Because the morning of the accident, Kelechi had asked her for a ride and she had said she was running late. She had carried that for 5 years. The settlement with accrued interest was substantial. More than substantial. It was the kind of number that quietly rearranges what is possible. Adaeze read the letter twice. Then she set it down on the kitchen counter, walked to the window and wept. Not from relief, not yet, but from something older and more complicated. Because Kelechi, even in death, had tried to take care of them. Because she had spent years surviving without knowing the net was there. Because she had burned herself down to the foundation before she found it. Because she had set fire to herself before she found it. She did not call Tundai. She called a lawyer first. Then she called Amaka, who sobbed on the phone and kept saying, "I'm sorry it took so long. I'm so sorry." And Adaeze said, "You did it. That is all that matters. You did it." Then she sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and wrote 2 lists. The first list was what she owed Meridian Logistics. The second list was what she owed herself. She returned every naira, with interest, with a written statement of full accountability, with no attempt to minimise or deflect. It took 4 months and nearly a third of the settlement. Meridian did not pursue criminal charges. Her record, her transparency, her proactive restitution, and perhaps some institutional reckoning with what their own inaction had allowed, all of it weighed in her favour. She did not get her job back. She had not expected to. Within 6 months she found a new position, junior role, lower title, honest work. She took it without hesitation. She told Tundai she was leaving on a Sunday morning, over tea she had made herself, while he read his newspaper. She was calm. She had rehearsed nothing. She had simply decided, and that was enough. She told him she was taking the children, all 3. He looked up. Something moved across his face, surprise or the beginning of an argument, and she held his gaze and said, "You told my son he didn't belong here. I should have left the day you said it. That is the only thing I regret, not leaving sooner." She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. The apartment was small, 3 bedrooms, just barely, one of which was more of a converted study with ambitions. Emre chose the blue room immediately and covered an entire wall in drawings of cars and something that may have been a dragon or possibly a very ambitious dog. The twins slept in cots on either side of her bed for the first month. She woke every 2 hours and fed them in the dark, and sometimes she was so tired she wept, And sometimes she was so full of something, not quite happiness, but adjacent to it, something closer to wholeness, that she wept for that reason too. On the anniversary of Kelechi's death, she lit a candle the way she always did. This time, Emre sat beside her. "Was he funny?" Emre asked. The real questions of a child finally old enough to want to understand. "Very," she said. "He used to do terrible impressions of footballers. You would have found it hilarious." Emre considered this with great seriousness. "I would like to have found it hilarious," he said. She laughed so hard she startled both twins awake. She carried the weight of what she had done, the ledger adjustments, the breach, the version of herself she had become in that desperate corridor between survival and collapse. She did not minimize it. She did not perform redemption for anyone else's comfort. She simply worked and paid, and got up each morning in her small, honest apartment and made breakfast for 3 children and moved forward. Not because the past was clean, because her children's future didn't have to be. Adaeze didn't fail because she was weak. She failed because she was alone. And she was alone because someone who should have stood beside her chose to count his tiles instead. If this story moved you, share it. Someone in your life right now is carrying something this heavy in silence. A share might be the only reminder they get today that they are not alone. And if you are, Adaeze, if you recognize yourself anywhere in these pages, know this: the woman who survives is not the one who never breaks. She is the one who breaks, counts what remains, and builds again. Follow for more stories about real strength. Drop a comment below. What part of this story stayed with you? The heaviest thing a mother carries is the weight of choices made in the dark. The bravest thing she does is walk back into the light, not pretending the dark never happened, but refusing to let it be the end of her story.